She sat in the courtroom wearing a soft pink sweater, her hair in a neat ponytail, looking every bit like the straight-A student everyone believed her to be. When the judge read the charges against her, she didn't cry, she didn't tremble, she smiled. A slow, deliberate smile that said she thought she was untouchable. But what she didn't know was that her own text messages, her own internet searches, and her own mother were about to destroy that smile forever. Before we dive into how a seemingly perfect teenager became a cold-blooded killer, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We cover twisted cases like this every week. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Your support keeps these stories coming. This is the story of Madison Pierce, 17 years old, captain of the debate team, volunteer at the local animal shelter. A girl with a 4.0 GPA and early acceptance to 3 prestigious universities. Her Instagram was filled with inspirational quotes about kindness and perseverance. Her teachers called her a model student. Her classmates called her sweet. Her parents called her their pride and joy. But behind the carefully curated photos and the honor roll certificates, Madison Pierce was living a double life. A life of lies, manipulation, and a simmering rage that no one saw coming until it was too late. Madison grew up in Riverside Heights, a quiet suburb where nothing bad ever happened. Her father was a dentist. Her mother was a real estate agent. They lived in a beautiful colonial home with a white picket fence and a golden retriever named Buddy. From the outside, the Pierce family was perfect, the kind of family other families envied. But perfection has a price, and for Madison, that price was suffocating control disguised as love. Her parents didn't just have expectations, they had demands. Every grade was scrutinized, every friend was vetted, every hour of her day was scheduled down to the minute. She wasn't allowed to date, she wasn't allowed to go to parties. Her entire life was a carefully constructed path toward becoming exactly what her parents wanted her to be. So Madison did what many teenagers in her position do. She lied. Small lies at first, saying she was at the library when she was meeting friends, claiming she was studying when she was scrolling through her phone. But as the pressure mounted, so did the lies. And somewhere along the way, the lies stopped being about freedom. They became about power. By her junior year, Madison had perfected the art of deception. She had learned to say exactly what adults wanted to hear, to cry on cue, to manipulate situations to her advantage. She wasn't just lying to avoid punishment. She was lying because she enjoyed it, because it made her feel superior, smarter than everyone around her. And then she met Mrs. Rachel Hartley, her AP English teacher, a kind, dedicated woman in her early 30s who genuinely cared about her students. Mrs. Hartley saw something in Madison that others missed, not potential, but warning signs. The way Madison would smile just a little too quickly after being corrected, the way she spoke about other students with subtle cruelty disguised as concern, the way she manipulated group projects to make herself look good while others failed. Mrs. Hartley did what any good teacher would do. She reached out. She tried to help. She called Madison's parents to express her concerns, not to get the girl in trouble, but because she was worried. She saw a teenager drowning under pressure and wanted to throw her a lifeline. Madison Pierce saw it differently. She saw betrayal. She saw someone who had gotten in her way, someone who had threatened to expose the cracks in her perfect facade. And in Madison's mind, there was only one solution to problems like that: elimination. What happened next would shock the entire community. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon in late October, Mrs. Rachel Hartley was found in her classroom after school hours. She had been struck repeatedly with a heavy object. The attack was brutal, personal, and it had been carried out with a level of planning that would make even seasoned investigators recoil in disbelief. The call came in at 4:47 p.m. The school janitor had found Mrs. Hartley's body. The scene was horrific. This wasn't a random act of violence. This was rage. Pure, calculated rage disguised as a crime of opportunity. Within hours, detectives from the Riverside Heights Police Department began interviewing students and staff. They canvassed the school. They reviewed security footage. And they found something that immediately raised red flags. The cameras showed Madison Pierce entering Mrs. Hartley's classroom at 3:30 p.m., just 15 minutes after the final bell. She was seen leaving at 4:15 p.m. alone carrying her backpack. 30 minutes later, Mrs. Hartley was found dead. When detectives brought Madison in for questioning, she arrived with her parents and played her role to perfection. She was the devastated student, the girl who had looked up to Mrs. Hartley. She cried. She trembled. She spoke in a small, fragile voice about how much the teacher had meant to her. But Detective Sarah Campos had spent 20 years reading Liars, and Madison Pierce was a textbook case of a narcissist who believed she was smarter than everyone in the room. Her tears were perfectly timed, her voice cracked at all the right moments, but her eyes, cold and calculating, told a different story. Detective Campos asked gentle questions at first. She asked about Madison's relationship with Mrs. Hartley, about the phone call to her parents, about what Madison had been doing after school that day, and Madison's story was smooth. Too smooth. She claimed she had gone to Mrs. Hartley's classroom to ask about a paper she was working on. They had chatted briefly. Mrs. Hartley was fine when Madison left. She went home, did her homework, had dinner with her family, but the timeline didn't add up. Madison claimed she left the classroom at 3:45 p.m. Security footage showed her leaving at 4:15 p.m. That was a 30-minute gap. 30 minutes she couldn't account for. When Detective Campos pointed this out, Madison's mask slipped, just for a second. A flash of irritation crossed her face before she plastered on another layer of confused innocence. She suggested the cameras must be wrong, that she must have lost track of time, that she was so upset about Mrs. Hartley's death she couldn't remember clearly. It was a masterful performance, but it wasn't enough. Because while Madison was spinning her web of lies, forensic teams were processing the crime scene, and what they found was damning. Mrs. Hartley had been struck with a heavy bookend from her own classroom, a bookend that was now missing. Investigators found traces of blood in the school's outdoor trash bin, blood that matched the victim. And when they searched that bin more thoroughly, they found the murder weapon wrapped in a Riverside Heights High School sweatshirt, a sweatshirt with Madison Pierce's name embroidered on the sleeve. The physical evidence was strong, but what truly sealed Madison's fate came from a place she thought was private and untraceable: her phone. When investigators obtained a warrant to search Madison's devices, they uncovered a digital diary of premeditation that was as chilling as it was detailed. The search history on her laptop told a story of cold, calculated planning. 3 weeks before the murder, Madison had searched how to make a death look like an accident. 2 weeks before, do security cameras record all the time? 1 week before, can deleted text messages be recovered? And the day before the murder, at 11:47 p.m., Madison Pierce had searched, how long does it take for someone to die from head trauma? But the searches were just the beginning. Investigators found text messages between Madison and her best friend, a girl named Ashley, that revealed the true depths of her hatred. In these messages, Madison didn't pretend to be the sweet, kind student. She was vicious, calculating, cruel. One message, sent the night after Mrs. Hartley called her parents, read, "That bitch is going to ruin everything. She needs to learn to mind her own business." Another, sent a week later, "I'm done playing nice." Some people need to be taught a lesson. And the most damning message of all, sent 2 days before the murder, "I know exactly how to fix this problem. And no one will ever know it was me." When confronted with this evidence, Madison's calm facade shattered. In the interrogation room, with her parents sitting beside her in stunned silence, she didn't confess. She doubled down. She claimed the messages were taken out of context, that she was just venting, that teenagers say dramatic things all the time and don't mean them. But Detective Campos had one more piece of evidence: a witness, a student who had been in the library that afternoon and had seen Madison through the classroom window. The student hadn't thought much of it at the time, but after Mrs. Hartley's death, the memory came flooding back. Madison had been standing over something. Her arm was raised, and then she had moved quickly, blocking the view. The witness hadn't wanted to believe what they saw, but they couldn't stay silent, not when a teacher they loved was dead. Madison Pierce was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. As she was led out of the police station in handcuffs, photographers captured the moment that would become infamous. Madison wasn't crying. She wasn't hiding her face. She was staring directly at the camera with a small, defiant smile, a smile that said she still believed she would win. The trial of Madison Pierce began 6 months later. The courtroom was packed. Mrs. Hartley's family sat in the front row, their faces etched with grief. Madison sat at the defense table in her soft pink sweater, her expression one of careful innocence. The prosecution's case was devastating. They presented the security footage, the murder weapon, the text messages, the search history, They brought forward the witness who had seen Madison in the classroom, and they called Mrs. Hartley's husband to the stand, a man who spoke through tears about the wife he had lost and the students she had dedicated her life to helping. The defense tried to argue that Madison was a good kid who had made a terrible mistake in a moment of panic. That Mrs. Hartley's phone call to her parents had triggered something in a stressed, overwhelmed teenager, that this was manslaughter, not murder, that Madison deserved a second chance. But the jury wasn't buying it, because the evidence showed this wasn't a moment of panic. It was a calculated execution. Madison had planned this, she had researched it, she had covered her tracks, and she had smiled about it. The moment that sealed her fate came when the prosecution played a recording. A voicemail Mrs. Hartley had left for her husband the day before she died. In it, she talked about Madison, about how worried she was for the girl, about how she planned to keep reaching out, to keep trying to help. "I know she's struggling," Mrs. Hartley's voice said, warm and full of compassion, "but I'm not giving up on her. That's what teachers do. We don't give up." The courtroom was silent, and for the first time Madison's mask cracked, not with remorse, but with rage. Her jaw clenched, her hands balled into fists. The jury saw it, the judge saw it, and they understood. This wasn't a troubled teen. This was a narcissist who had killed someone for daring to see through her lies. The verdict came back in less than 3 hours, guilty of first-degree murder. At sentencing, the judge looked directly at Madison and spoke words that would echo through the community. "You are not a child. You are a predator who believed you were too smart to be caught. You took the life of a woman who tried to help you, and you showed no remorse. You will spend the next 40 years in prison. And maybe, in that time, you will finally understand the weight of what you've done." As the bailiffs moved to take her away, Madison turned one last time toward the gallery, toward Mrs. Hartley's family, and she smiled, that same cold, calculated smile. It was her final act of defiance, her final message that she regretted nothing. But as the courtroom doors closed behind her, that smile faded. Because Madison Pierce, the girl who thought she was untouchable, had just learned the hardest lesson of her life. Justice has a longer memory than any lie. Madison Pierce is currently serving her sentence in a juvenile facility until she turns 21, at which point she'll be transferred to an adult prison. Mrs. Rachel Hartley's family established a scholarship in her name for students pursuing education degrees, and Riverside Heights High School installed a memorial garden in her honor. If this case shocked you, hit that like button and subscribe to Her Lethal Story. We cover cases like this every week. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and let me know what case you want covered next. Thanks for watching.